Single mom reported a lost backpack. Security returned with the CEO. The Monday morning rush at Hayes Corporation carried its usual rhythm, swift steps, sharp elevator chimes, coffee steam drifting through the air like thin fog. The revolving doors spun nonstop as employees poured into the lobby with the determination of people who couldn't afford to be late. In the middle of that hurry, Grace Miller stepped in, clutching her son's hand and balancing the cardboard box of supplies against her hip. She had woken Liam before sunrise, whispering apologies into his hair as she helped him dress. The babysitter had canceled at the last minute. The neighbor wasn't home, and Grace had no family in the city. She had run out of options. So the little boy walked beside her, sleepy eyes, soft brown hair, clutching a faded blue backpack that had been patched twice and probably needed a third. To anyone else, it was an old kid's bag. To her, it held everything: Liam's inhaler, his crayons, his snack, and the sealed yellow envelope she had spent 3 nights writing. Inside that envelope was her plea, her application to become a full-time employee instead of a temporary cafeteria worker, and a handwritten letter addressed quietly to the CEO about creating a small safe corner for employees, kids during emergencies. She had never dared submit it directly. She only hoped someone in HR might pass it along. When they reached the lobby, Grace bowed her head toward the security desk. "Morning, Mr. Lopez. Could Liam sit on the waiting chairs for a bit? I just need to get through the morning coffee rush." The older guard's eyes softened. "Sure thing. I'll keep an eye on him. Just don't forget to come back soon. Today's a busy one." Grace nodded gratefully. She knelt in front of Liam, cupping his cheek. "Sit right here, sweetheart. Hold your backpack. Don't go anywhere. Mommy will be back fast, okay?" Liam nodded, his small legs swinging from the chair as he hugged the backpack close. The glow from the security monitors reflected off his face, making him look even smaller than 7. She stood there for a second longer, swallowing the ache of guilt, then hurried toward the cafeteria. Her manager was already pacing. "Grace, we're slammed, and executives are on site today. Move fast," she murmured. "Yes, sir," and jumped into motion, wiping counters, starting the espresso machine, preparing pastries. Her hands worked automatically while her mind stayed anchored at the lobby. Every so often she imagined Liam sitting alone, clutching the bag, trying to be brave. An hour later, during a brief lull, she darted out of the cafeteria, apron still tied at her waist, heart thudding. But when she reached the lobby, Liam was crying. He stood alone beside the empty waiting chairs, shoulders shaking, cheeks streaked with tears, and in his hands nothing. The backpack was gone. Grace rushed forward and dropped to her knees. "Honey, what happened? Where is it?" Liam choked on a sob. I put it next to me. I was playing with my car, then. It wasn't there anymore." Her heart clenched painfully. Not just because of the inhaler, but because the envelope, her hope, her one brave letter was gone. She hugged Liam tight, forcing calm into her voice, though panic clawed at her ribs. "It's okay, we'll find it. I promise," but she didn't know that. She took Liam's hand and hurried to the security office. The fluorescent lights inside hummed overhead, casting a pale glow on rows of monitors. Grace stood trembling beside the desk while Mr. Lopez replayed footage, his brows knitting together. "Describe the bag again," he asked gently. "Blue, faded. One patch near the bottom. A dinosaur sticker Liam put on. Inside there's his inhaler and some papers. Please, the inhaler is important." He nodded. "We'll review every camera angle." "Don't worry." But Grace did worry. She worried about the inhaler. She worried about her job. She worried she would be scolded for leaving her station. And she worried that maybe, just maybe, she shouldn't have put her hopes into that yellow envelope at all. After several minutes, Lopez turned from the monitors with a determined look. "We'll notify the whole security team. If someone turns it in, we'll know." Grace breathed out shakily and held Liam close. She had no way of knowing the backpack wasn't lost in the lobby anymore. It had already traveled somewhere she never imagined, into the private elevator of the CEO himself. On the upper floors of Hayes Corporation, the morning felt different than the chaos below. The air was cooler, the lighting cleaner, and the silence thicker, broken only by the steady hum of conference rooms and the muted clatter of executives shuffling reports. Daniel Hayes stepped out of the boardroom with the quiet exhaustion of a man who had listened to far too many numbers and not enough truth. His suit still looked immaculate, but the faint tension in his shoulders betrayed how long the meeting had dragged on. He walked toward his private elevator, nodding politely at a director who passed by, and pressed the button. When the doors slid open, he expected to be greeted by the usual impeccable interior: polished steel, soft downlighting, spotless floor. Instead, something entirely out of place caught his eye. A small, faded blue backpack sat abandoned in the corner of the elevator. Daniel paused. The elevator was restricted; only he and a few high-ranking executives used it. It was nearly impossible for a child's item to end up here. He stepped inside and crouched down, reaching for the bag. The fabric was worn, one strap frayed, a dinosaur sticker peeling at the corner. It looked like it had been carried by small hands through many mornings and many storms. His first instinct was simple: lost item. Send it to building security. Still, something tugged at him. He unzipped the main compartment carefully, just enough to look for a name tag. Inside, a small inhaler rolled toward him. He picked it up and read the marker-streaked writing on the label: Liam Miller. Beneath it lay a couple of crumpled notebooks, a drawing of the Hayes building drawn with bold orange crayons, the words "Mom's Work" scribbled at the bottom. And beneath all of that, a yellow envelope, slightly wrinkled, sealed gently as if by hands afraid of being dismissed. To CEO from a working single mom, Daniel froze. He stared at the envelope for a long moment, feeling something shift quietly in his chest. Then he opened it. Not to invade privacy, but because someone had trusted him specifically with these words. The letter was handwritten, neat but clearly written late at night, probably after long shifts. It spoke of rotating cafeteria shifts, of the difficulty of finding childcare, of the guilt of bringing a child to work on unexpected days. The tone wasn't angry. It wasn't demanding. It wasn't even bitter. It was polite, careful, almost hesitant. And the request inside was simple. Could the company consider creating a small emergency safe space for employees' children during unavoidable situations? A small corner, a tiny accommodation, a lifeline. At the end, one sentence stood out: "If someone reads this, thank you for listening. I only want to work hard and still be a mother who doesn't fail her child." Daniel exhaled slowly, an exhale that carried memories he usually kept buried. He remembered being a little boy sleeping on a rolled-up coat in the back of a restaurant kitchen, while his mother scrubbed tables during late-night shifts. The fear in her eyes every time he coughed. Her apologies, her quiet strength. The elevator hummed as it descended, but Daniel didn't notice. He held the inhaler and the envelope as if they were relics from a past he had almost forgotten. Then the building's radio crackled through the elevator speaker. "Security to all units. We have a missing blue backpack belonging to a child named Liam Miller, containing an inhaler. High priority." Daniel straightened, the message snapping him fully back into the present. A child with asthma. A missing inhaler. A mother desperate enough to put a letter into a backpack because she didn't know another way to be heard. This was no longer a lost and found situation. He hit the stop button, letting the elevator pause on the next accessible floor. The doors opened to reveal his assistant waiting outside, startled. "Sir, is everything okay?" "I can take that down to security." Daniel shook his head. "No, I'll deliver it myself. But sir, I need to meet the person who wrote this." His voice was low but firm. And with the small backpack in hand, he stepped out of the elevator, not as a CEO fulfilling a duty, but as a man who suddenly remembered what it felt like to be the child on the other end of a forgotten inhale. He didn't yet know that 2 floors below, Grace was holding Liam close, praying for a miracle. But he was on his way. The fluorescent lights in the lobby security office buzzed faintly, casting a cold sheen across the tiled floor. Grace stood close to the console desk, one arm wrapped tightly around Liam as if shielding him from the world. His breathing had begun to turn slightly wheezy, a soft, uneven sound that sent a jolt of fear up her spine. She rubbed slow circles on his back, whispering, "Just a little longer, sweetheart. We'll find it." At the same time, her eyes kept flicking to the hallway, terrified she'd be late returning to the cafeteria. Her manager's voice echoed in her head, done to disappear during morning rush. What would he say if she didn't show? What would happen to her job? Mr. Lopez clicked through camera angles, his brow furrowed in concentration. Grace tried to stand still, but she couldn't stop shifting her weight. Liam leaned into her leg, clutching her apron, his small body trembling from the leftover tears. The edges of panic tugged at her, sharp and relentless. An inhaler wasn't optional. A 7-year-old didn't simply go without. Then the intercom buzzed. A younger guard stuck his head into the room. "Lopez?" Someone found the backpack. "They're bringing it down now." He paused, lowering his voice. "And apparently a high-level exec is with it." Grace blinked. A what?" "Someone from upper floors," Lopez clarified, though there was a puff of confusion in his tone, too. "Must have just happened to be nearby." "Don't worry," Grace nodded, but unease rippled through her. Why would anyone from upper management bother bringing down a child's lost backpack? Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe someone saw the inhaler and panicked. She clutched Liam tighter, bracing for whichever awkward scenario might walk through the door. A moment later, the security office door swung open. A young security officer stepped inside first, and then Daniel Hayes appeared behind him. He filled the doorway with his height, tailored suit, and an expression far softer than what one would expect from a CEO. In his hand was the blue backpack, worn, faded, a corner frayed but unmistakably Liam's. The room froze. Even the security screen seemed to flicker in surprise. Grace felt her heart leap to her throat. Her knees nearly buckled. Why was the CEO himself holding her child's bag? Daniel took 2 steps into the room, his attention immediately dropping to Liam. The boy looked up at him with wide, nervous eyes, still sniffling. Instead of towering over him, Daniel crouched until he was eye level, an unexpected gesture that shifted the entire energy of the room. "Hey," Daniel said softly, holding out the backpack. "Is this yours?" Liam nodded so quickly, it made his hair bounce. Tears still clung to his lashes as he reached out and hugged the backpack with both arms, burying half his face in it as if reclaiming something precious that had been stolen. Grace's voice trembled. "Thank you, sir. I am so sorry you had to deal with this. I didn't mean for it to cause trouble." "No trouble," Daniel replied gently. "A child's needs are never trouble." Grace's breath caught. No one at her job had ever spoken with such simple certainty about something that mattered to her. She swallowed hard, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. Daniel stood, turning to her fully now. For a moment, his eyes softened with something she couldn't quite place recognition. Understanding? She didn't know he had read her letter. She simply sensed something unspoken flicker across his expression. "You work in the cafeteria, right?" he asked. "Yes, the morning shift," she said quietly. "And today you didn't have childcare?" Grace nodded, mortified. "I tried. The sitter canceled. I had no one else. I shouldn't have brought him, but..." He raised a hand gently. "You don't need to apologize for taking care of your child." She froze. Those words hit deeper than he probably intended. Then Daniel's gaze softened further, and he said quietly, "And thank you for being brave enough to write." Grace blinked. What? Daniel offered a small, mysterious smile. "It doesn't matter. Just thank you." Her heart hammered. He couldn't possibly mean the letter in the envelope, could he? No, impossible. He was just being polite. Grace shook her head slightly, unable to process the idea. Daniel eventually stepped back, giving Liam another reassuring nod. If you need anything else, security will help. Take care of him. And just like that, he was gone back into the bright hallway, leaving behind a stunned silence. Everyone else understood something Grace didn't. The CEO had been moved by her letter. He wasn't just returning a backpack. He was stepping into their story. But Grace, accustomed to expecting nothing, simply held her son and whispered, "It's okay now. You're safe." She had no idea the real storm was still ahead. For 2 days after the security office incident, Grace moved through the cafeteria as quietly as a breeze. She kept her head down, focused on brewing coffee, refilling pastries, wiping counters, and praying no one noticed how her hands still trembled when she remembered the way Daniel Hayes had crouched to speak to Liam. She didn't tell anyone about the encounter. Not her coworkers, not her manager. It felt too unreal, too delicate, like speaking it out loud would make it vanish. She was just grateful the backpack was back, the inhaler safe, and Liam breathing normally again. So when her manager called her name sharply one morning, "Grace, HR wants you upstairs," her stomach dropped. She wiped her hands on her apron and hurried to the elevator, expecting reprimands. God, please don't let them fire me for leaving my station. But when she entered the HR office, she found a woman smiling warmly. "Grace, please sit. We have good news." "Good news?" Grace sat hesitantly. "We've reviewed your file," the HR representative said. "There's an opening for a full-time cafeteria coordination assistant. Daytime hours. Benefits included. And your name came up as a strong candidate." Grace blinked rapidly. "Me? Yes, and additionally," the woman continued, "we're exploring a small pilot program, an emergency corner for employees' children. Someone mentioned you might be perfect for the advisory group, since you understand the challenges." It took everything Grace had not to cry on the spot. The idea that her small, quiet letter, her one attempt to be brave, might have reached someone. It felt impossible, but she didn't argue. She simply nodded, pressing both hands together to keep them from shaking. I would be honored." Her heart felt lighter than it had in years. But light doesn't last long in a building where gossip travels faster than truth. By lunchtime that same day, an entirely different version of events had begun spreading. Someone in IT had seen the security replay Daniel stepping into the office, backpack in hand, speaking to Grace and Liam. They took a grainy still image from the screen and jokingly dropped it into an employee group chat. "CEO returns backpack to cafeteria worker?" LOL. What? The comments rolled in. "Crush at first sight? Plot twist. He likes single moms?" Now we know why she got called to HR twice. And then, the more poisonous ones. Wow, from cafeteria to promotion in a week. She must be very talented. This is why protocol matters. Some people know how to take advantage. Grace didn't hear any of this until she started noticing eyes following her, observing, whispering. Even the way some coworkers paused their conversations when she walked past told her something had shifted. But she still didn't know the full scope of it. Not until HR called her back again. This time, the room felt colder. A senior HR manager waited with crossed arms. A regional supervisor sat beside him, expression unreadable. "Grace," the manager began, "we need clarification regarding your recent interaction with Mr. Hayes." Her breath caught. "My interaction?" "Yes. Several employees reported that the CEO personally delivered your son's backpack. That's unusual. We need to understand why." Grace stared at them, stunned. I don't know why. I filed a lost item report. That's all. Do you have a prior relationship with Mr. Hayes?" "No, of course not. Did you contact him directly, or ask anyone to influence him on your behalf?" "What? No, I would never." She tried to explain, but every sentence was interrupted. "You must understand," the manager said. "The company cannot risk the appearance of impropriety. And we must maintain the dignity of our leadership, the supervisor added. As if she was the risk. As if she had done something shameful. Each question felt like a stone thrown at her. Suddenly, the kindness in Daniel's voice, the sincerity in his eyes, it all twisted into a weapon being used against her. By the time she walked out of HR, her cheeks burned with humiliation. She found Liam waiting outside the office, dangling his feet from a chair. When he saw her expression, he slid down and hurried to her side. "Mom," he whispered, tugging her sleeve, "did I get you in trouble? Because I lost the backpack?" The question pierced deeper than any accusation HR had thrown. Grace knelt, pulling him into her arms. "No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong," but her voice cracked. Because somehow, doing the right thing, searching for a child's inhaler, writing a letter asking for kindness, had turned into a storm she never meant to start. And she had no idea that the only person who could stop that storm had already heard every word she said in the auditorium. The day of the company-wide meeting arrived quicker than Grace expected. She had barely recovered from the sting of HR's interrogation when she found herself assigned to the refreshment team for the event. It was ironic. She thought she was expected to smile, pour coffee, and hand out pastries in the same building where whispers about her were still circulating like smoke no one could pin down. The auditorium was enormous, its ceiling lined with warm amber lights and its massive screen displaying the company values: culture, respect, transparency. Rows of chairs filled quickly as employees streamed in. Grace moved quietly along the back of the room, setting out cups and arranging trays, trying to make herself as small as possible. Liam sat in a designated corner nearby, legs crossed, eyes scanning the pictures in his book. But every few seconds, he peeked toward her, sensing something was wrong in the way children often do without understanding the details. When the meeting began, the lights dimmed slightly. A middle manager stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand. His tone was firm, rehearsed, and polished. He spoke about workplace values, collaboration, and the need for professionalism. Grace listened mechanically, half absorbing the words. Then the tone shifted. The manager cleared his throat. "Recently," he said, "we've seen situations where goodwill from leadership was misinterpreted. It's a reminder that we all must be cautious not to take advantage of generosity." A low murmur moved through the employees. Grace felt dozens of eyes flick in her direction. She tightened her grip on the tray so hard her knuckles whitened. Behind her, two employees whispered, not softly enough. "Pretty sure he's talking about that cafeteria, Mom." "Yeah, the one the CEO personally helped." "What did she even do, cry?" Grace's stomach twisted. Then came the final blow, the soft, fragile voice of her son. "Mom?" She looked down to see Liam tugging her sleeve, worry etched on his small face. "Are they mad at you because I lost my backpack?" The question broke something inside her. Because he truly believed he was the reason. Her throat tightened painfully. She knelt, brushing his hair aside. "No, sweetheart, no one is mad at you." But her voice trembled. The lie tasted bitter. The meeting continued, the manager now inviting questions from the audience. A microphone stood ready in the aisle. No one moved. No one wanted to be the first to speak. Grace stared at the microphone as though it were a cliff. A reckless part of her whispered to stay quiet, to keep her head down, to survive the way she always had. But then she felt Liam press against her side, still afraid. In that moment, something shifted. Not courage exactly, more like exhaustion from years of swallowing words she should have spoken. Before she could think herself out of it, she raised her hand. The room froze. The manager blinked, clearly not expecting anyone, much less a cafeteria worker, to volunteer. He gestured stiffly. Yes, please." Grace walked to the microphone, her legs shaking so hard she was amazed they carried her. The lights were warm on her face, blinding. Hundreds of people stared, some with curiosity, some with judgment, some with guilt. She gripped the microphone with both hands to steady herself. "I want to talk about the backpack," she began. A ripple of whispers moved through the room. She took a breath. "3 days ago, my son lost his backpack right here in the lobby. It had his inhaler inside, and he has asthma. I panicked. I reported it immediately. The security team helped us." She swallowed. "I shouldn't have brought my son that day. My babysitter canceled. I didn't have anyone else. But I didn't bring him to get attention or favors. I brought him because I couldn't leave him alone." The room grew quieter with every word. She continued, voice trembling but gaining strength. "When Mr. Hayes returned the backpack, I was surprised. But I didn't ask for that. I didn't know he would be the one to bring it." Her eyes flicked toward Liam. "I'm just a mom trying not to fail her kid." She hesitated, then added, "And if I wrote a letter asking for an emergency corner for kids, I did that because some of us have no childcare and no choices on certain days. We don't want special treatment. Just a safe option." Silence. Deep. Heavy. Employees looked down at their hands. Some shifted awkwardly, realizing the harm their whispers had caused. Liam watched her with wide, shining eyes, half fear, half pride. Grace had expected judgment. She hadn't expected stillness, and she certainly didn't expect what would happen next. A chair scraped the floor in the front row. A tall figure stood. Daniel Hayes. He took a step forward and said, voice clear enough to reach every corner of the auditorium, "Let me speak." Every head turned as Daniel Hayes stepped into the aisle, his footsteps deliberate and steady. The auditorium seemed to shrink around him, the warm stage lights reflecting faintly off his suit. The manager on stage blinked, startled, and instinctively stepped aside. Daniel didn't wait for anyone to introduce him. He simply held out a hand, and the microphone was placed into it as if the room already understood it belonged there. His gaze swept the crowd, not harsh, not angry, but impossibly calm. Then he looked at Grace. "Thank you," he said to her first, loud enough for everyone to hear. "For speaking." Grace froze, hands clasped in front of her, unsure where to look. Liam stood beside her, gripping her apron, eyes wide like he was watching a superhero scene unfold. Daniel turned toward the auditorium. "I'd like to clarify the situation regarding the lost backpack." A ripple of unease moved through the employees. "I found the backpack," Daniel said plainly, "in my private elevator." Murmurs broke out immediately. The manager on stage shifted uncomfortably. Daniel held up his hand. Silence returned. "I opened it because I saw a child's inhaler inside. And I saw the name written on it, Liam Miller." He glanced briefly at the boy, then back to the audience. "A child's safety is not an inconvenience. It is a responsibility." The statement landed like a stone dropped into still water, quiet, but undeniable. "And I took it down to security myself," Daniel continued. "Not because of any arrangement or favoritism, but because I recognized the fear behind that missing inhaler." He paused. "When I was a kid, my mother worked late-night shifts in a kitchen. She didn't have childcare. I slept in corners, on folded coats, on empty flour sacks. She worried constantly that if something happened, if I needed her, she wouldn't get to me in time." His voice softened, but it didn't waver. "So when I saw that inhaler, I remembered her fear." A hush fell over the room. Grace's breath caught. She had never imagined the CEO's life could have brushed that close to hers. Daniel continued, "The truth is simple. A child lost a backpack. His mother did everything she could. And somewhere along the way, our company allowed whispers to become weapons. Some people shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. I've read comments. I've heard rumors. And let me be clear, a single mom standing up for her child is not manipulation. It is strength." The words hit like a clean, ringing bell. Grace felt her eyes heat, tears rising before she could stop them. She quickly blinked them back, but one slipped down anyway. Daniel looked straight at her. "No one should feel ashamed for asking for help. Not here." Then he straightened, shifting from personal truth to leadership. In light of what happened, I'm announcing a new pilot program, Backpack Corner. Gasps slipped through the room. It will be a small, secure space monitored by our security team, where employees' children can stay briefly in emergency situations. Not a full child care center, just a safe corner for the days life gives no warnings. His tone grew firmer. This is not a charity. It is basic humanity. For a moment, no one moved. Then Daniel added, and I'd like to invite Grace Miller to join the advisory group publicly. She understands this issue better than anyone. Grace's hand flew to her mouth. The room blurred for a moment. She felt lights, eyes, breath, but no sound. Liam squeezed her hand so hard, she thought he might cry again, but this time from relief. Daniel wasn't finished. We're also launching an anonymous employee feedback portal, he said. Every submission will be reviewed by leadership, including me. No more letters buried in the bottom of lost backpacks. A few people laughed softly, not mocking, but humbled. And then, slowly, someone began clapping. Another followed. Then the room erupted into applause, loud, echoing, genuine, not polite, not forced, a cleansing wave. Grace stood frozen in the center of it, tears sliding down her cheeks. But they weren't tears of shame or fear. They were tears of release, of finally being seen. Liam tugged her sleeve. "Mom," he whispered with a grin, "everyone is clapping for you." Grace smiled through tears, pulling him close. No, she thought. They weren't clapping for her. They were clapping because someone finally said the truth out loud. And Daniel had turned a rumor into a reckoning. The months that followed the company-wide meeting brought a quiet transformation to Hayes Corporation, one that unfolded not with fanfare, but with small, meaningful shifts. The kind that seeped into hallways, softened workplace tensions, and changed how people treated each other. The gossip that once circled the building evaporated. Conversations became gentler. And a humble little space near the security office, once an unused corner, became the heart of that change. Backpack Corner opened officially in early fall. The space wasn't extravagant, just a small nook with soft beanbag chairs, a sturdy table, children's books, coloring supplies, and a sign that read, "For life's unexpected moments." But the simplicity made it perfect. Parents who once felt trapped by sudden emergencies now felt seen. Attendance records reflected fewer last-minute call-offs, and anxious faces at the start of each shift became far less common. Grace felt the change most clearly. She no longer woke before dawn with a knot of dread in her stomach. Her new role, cafeteria coordination assistant and part-time advisor for Backpack Corner, gave her stable hours, better income, and dignity she hadn't known in years. She still wore her apron proudly, but now she also carried a badge that showed she belonged not just as a worker, but as a contributor. Someone who mattered. When coworkers greeted her, their tone had changed. Respect replaced suspicion. Appreciation replaced whispered gossip. Sometimes she caught sight of Daniel walking through the cafeteria or the lobby, and he always offered a small nod, professional but warm. A silent reminder that courage, even unexpected courage, had ripple effects. The change in Liam was even more profound. He walked taller now, backpack snug on his shoulders, no longer afraid to pass security desks or elevators. He understood little of what had happened, but he knew one thing with certainty. His mom had stood up in a really big room, and people listened. The company's annual new school year celebration was scheduled in early September, a cheerful event for employees. Children with balloons, games, and tables stacked with school supplies. Grace and Liam attended together, weaving through crowds of smiling families. Liam's eyes went wide at the sight of colorful backpacks arranged like a rainbow. Daniel took the stage briefly to welcome everyone. This time, he wasn't the untouchable CEO, but someone speaking from experience, grounding the event with humanity. "We give backpacks today," he said, "not as gifts, but as reminders that small things matter. Sometimes a single backpack can change more than one life, if we pay attention. He never mentioned Grace by name. He didn't need to. The lesson lived in the moment itself. Then he lifted a blue backpack from the table beside him, bright and new, with the name Liam embroidered in white. "I'd like to call up a very brave young man," Daniel said. "Liam Miller." Liam froze, startled. Grace nudged him gently. "Go on, sweetheart," she whispered. He walked to the stage with careful steps, like each one carried its own heartbeat. Daniel crouched, just as he had in the security office months before, and handed him the backpack. Inside, along with school supplies, was a small white card. "Thank you for reminding us to listen." Liam beamed, clutching the backpack against his chest. Grace watched through blurry eyes, her throat tightening. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. How something once used to shame her and her son had now become a symbol of hope, belonging, and new beginnings. After the event ended, people slowly drifted out of the hall. Grace lingered in the corridor outside, Liam skipping circles around Backpack Corner, exploring his new backpack with gleeful excitement. Daniel approached quietly, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed. "He looks happy," he said. "He is," Grace replied, her smile soft. "I think this means more to him than he understands." "And to you?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then answered honestly. "It feels like..." Everything that was heavy became lighter. Daniel nodded. They stood side by side, looking down at the lobby, the floor where the blue backpack had been lost, found, and transformed into something larger than either of them imagined. After a moment, Daniel spoke again, carefully. "Grace, I know our worlds are different, and I don't want to cross any lines, but when it's not working hours, would you maybe let me take you and Liam to dinner sometime, as friends? Not CEO and employee." Grace felt warmth rise in her chest, not rushed or dramatic, just real. "I'd like that," she said. "I really would." At that exact moment, Liam's laughter rang through the lobby. He was running in circles around Backpack Corner, the new blue backpack bouncing behind him like a bright, hopeful flag announcing the life waiting ahead. The camera of life would have zoomed out then, rising above the little corner, above the lobby, above the logo of Hayes Corporation, showing how something as small as a lost backpack had reshaped a family and reminded a company how to care. Do you believe a single lost backpack can change the future of a family and a whole workplace? If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to help us spread more journeys of hope from single moms everywhere.